Right. I guess first of all, could you kind of just give me a little background, like we talked before off camera, just kind of where you're from and what brought you to the diocese?
Okay. Well, I'm originally from Kalamazoo, Michigan, and I came down here in first at let's see, 1992. I went to college at St. Meinrad and was down there for 4 years during college. Really loved the area. So after I graduated college, went back home to Michigan and said, Mom and Dad, I'm going to move down over here. I love the area. So why don't you come down with me? They're older. They had me after 25 years of marriage. And so I figured it would be easier for me to have them close by than me go back and forth. So they thought, yeah, that was a new adventure for them as well. So they moved down. So we all got here in 1997, and we've been living here ever since. And I've just loved the area here. So
Were you raised Catholic, and just kind of what that formation was like for you early on in your life?
okay, well, that's a great question. No, I was not raised Catholic. I was raised Lutheran. My parents were Lutherans. They previously were Christian Reformed, Dutch Christian Reformed. So that's kind of like Calvinist, Presbyterian Calvinist kind of. So they converted to Lutheran, the Lutheran Church. But we lived right across from the Catholic grade school and church. And so Mom and Dad wanted me to have a good, strong Christian education, so they sent me across the street to the Catholic school. So I had a lot of my formation in the Catholic school system and went on to high school as well. And so we had lots of discussions, religious-wise. My parents were very religious. We had faith talks, we prayed, we read the Bible, that sort of thing. But as I was more and more growing in the faith in general, there was a distinction made in my mind between Catholic and non-Catholic, and I knew I wanted to be Catholic. So my junior year of high school, I entered the church.
You mentioned the discussions and the contemplation you had. Was it overall, though, was it something that you wrestled with, or was it a fairly, were you pretty convicted in it that was the right decision?
My very first time attending Mass was in kindergarten. And as soon as I seen Father Solka walk down the aisle, I knew I wanted to be a priest. And so that was all what I was saying to everybody. But of course, my parents were saying, oh, he means a pastor. He wants to be a pastor. But by fifth grade, no, I was very solid in the idea that, no, I want to be a priest because Catholic priests can help people more and better than a Lutheran pastor. So I think that was the decisive grade in my formation where I decided, yeah, no, the Catholic route is what I'm going to go. So,
Growing up in the faith background that you did growing up, do you think that was it, I guess, more challenging, or was it, do you think, beneficial to be exposed to different faiths? Do you think that helped you?
having the different faith perspective has been immensely helpful, not only in my own personal life, but also in ministry as well, because when I'm approached by a non-Catholic, or when I have non-Catholics who are wanting to come into the church through the OCIA process, I get where they're coming from. And also in just the culture as we have, in American culture, very Protestant, in this area, that when Catholics have misunderstandings, I know exactly where those misunderstandings are coming from. I can relate to that, and so I can kind of shift the focus and shift them back a little bit on track. And it's like, yeah, no, they got some things right, but other things are just way off the mark. So it's been very helpful. I would never trade it. And also the love for Scripture that I have. Scripture is everything, and it's not the only thing, but it is the basis of everything that we believe as Catholics.
Can you talk a little bit about how long you've been here at Christ the King, and maybe just briefly, what you do at the
Sure.
parish?
I've been here about 7 years, and I'm the director of faith formation and youth ministry. So my job specifically takes care of the high school age and also the youth ministry that entails oversight and directing that. But I've also, through that, am in charge of OCIA and any adults that need to be confirmed. And so I also try to do some adult education, baptism prep, things like that. So kind of faith formation in general is what I've been doing. And so that's been a part of my career for over 25 years working in ministry. It's always been faith formation related.
Can you talk a little bit about just kind of the path to here, as far as when you started considering the permanent diaconate, and maybe when in that process you decided that was the right next step for you?
Well, I've always had a call to ministry. I've always had that call. But I have found that God always doesn't do it in a straight kind of path. And so as I've been ministering in faith formation, especially as I've been ministering here at Christ the King, that discernment started narrowing more. And I recognized that my skills and my gifts and knowledge and the needs of the church were coalescing around the permanent diaconate. And so that's what I felt that God was calling me, that I could be the service best to the Church of Evansville through that.
And you, just to circle back a little bit, you mentioned briefly, like when you were really young, priesthood being an option or consideration. So was that something you considered more in your adult life at all, or not so much? Can you talk just a little bit about that?
Yes, priesthood has always been in kind of the back of my mind, is what I thought that God had wanted and called me to do. But again, as I have discerned and as I've heard other people, and I could see again where my true gifts and my talents lie, it became more and more clear that God was calling me and more toward the permanent diaconate instead of priestly ministry. So again, deacons are not ordained to the priesthood but to the ministry and that service mode of Christ's priesthood. So and again, just by seeing my life choices and the things that I have been doing, and especially taking care of my parents until they are passing, those were all kind of diaconal ministries. And so I seem to enjoy the diaconal ministry. It's truly what John Paul says, that the diaconate is the church's service sacramentalized. And so I could see that very clearly playing out in my own life.
Just briefly, I know it's I think a 4-year preparation for the permanent diaconate. Just kind of what that's been like for you, and if you had expectations, has it been what you expected or different in any ways? Just a little bit about how the last 4 years have been for you.
It's been fabulous. It's been really great. The one thing especially has been the group of guys that I've been a part of. Where there are all of us together, 16 of us, and we have a camaraderie and we have a friendship, and those relationships would never have been there without the program. So I have, 15 close brothers now that I didn't have before. So that in and of itself has been the rewarding experience. The academic and the other formations have also been great along with that. I've always been kind of an academic, so the academic formation in particular wasn't too much of a challenge in that regard, but I've always enjoyed study. I always enjoy reading. That's one of my hobbies that I have. So it was good to refresh and update a lot of the things that I had previously studied before, and especially even canon law, because there was a lot of updates that has happened since Pope Francis. So that was also a necessary continuing education. So for me, education has always been very important, and especially in ministry, continuing to foster that education. And I guess for me too, it's practice what you preach, right? If I'm trying to be, a person of faith formation, and telling the adults and the adolescents and the teens that you need to continue to learn about your faith, well, I got to do the same. So we never stop learning. We can always learn more about Jesus.
You had mentioned a few of the aspects that made you think that you are a good fit for the permanent diaconate, but looking forward, August ordination and then being a deacon, are there any aspects of the role that you're most looking forward to, or anything in that regard?
Yes, I particularly the ability to read the gospel and then preach. That's something I'm really looking forward to. Again, I like to teach. That's always kind of been my, in my wheelhouse. I love to do that. And so even the times when I've had like a communion service and did a reflection on the readings or the gospel, that's usually come together pretty well, and I was able to do that. And again, it was it was natural for me. So that's one of the aspects that I'm looking forward to. And again, the other aspect is just being able to celebrate the sacrament of baptism, or any of the other sacramentals that the deacon gets to do. For example, offering blessings of rosaries, or other medals and things like that, or for people. Those kind of things I think are something I'm looking forward to, just to be able to again sanctify in that regard the people of God as they're involved in ministry with me.
And you had obviously talked about your discernment process before even entering this class, and then you've obviously gone through the 4 years of preparation. Does it start to feel close to real, or kind of just where your mind is as you look forward to ordination in August?
Yeah, this whole process is surreal, and it is. I recognize that this is, God has been so patient with me, and so this is not something that I take lightly. That this is something that is a great responsibility. It's a gift that God is bestowing on all of us, and I can't believe it. And so I think my go-to is like, I will believe it after it happens. So even now, I always say, well, if God wills it, I'll be ordained on the 8th. So again, we never know God's plans. We always have to be careful, because things may change. But yes, it's surreal. This has been a great opportunity. So one of my plans I have later in the summer in July, I'm going to go down to Gethsemane Monastery in Kentucky, the Trappist there. I'm going to spend a few days there in that silence and in contemplation, and reflect more on this ministry that God is about to give to me. And so it's not something I'm doing lightly.
Just through your discernment, and then just through the last 4 years of prep, is there any piece of advice or things you wish you knew that you would tell to maybe men who are maybe going to enter the next class, or just anything you would say to them if they're considering a permanent diaconate?
Continue to pray, and especially prayer in front of the Blessed Sacrament. I think the times in the process of my own formation where those doubts have come up, like, do I really want to do this? Is God really calling me for that? That has always been dispelled through times of Eucharistic adoration. I always kind of talked about it as my radiation therapy. So the Eucharist on the altar, and sometimes there's just, of course, no words, but just being in the presence of our Eucharistic Lord like that has been something of an encouragement. And again, it's so unique to see God, how God can really focus your attention if you give him that room to work and to affect your heart, because I've seen that. So yes, pray, and then don't be discouraged. Keep at it, and stay consistent. That's kind of the advice. If you have that, if you ever have I wonder if, then even if you're not 100% sure, go for it, because that's what the process is meant to do. It's helped you to come to that conclusion. So you never have to have it all said and done and all nice and in order. I think that's our, culture. We want to have everything in a nice little basket, but that's not how God works. And so just if you have a little inkling, test it out. That's what discernment is. That's what the Latin root is also, is to search it to see if it is true. This has been a fun experience, a fun journey with my classmates, with people that I'm ministering with, and so I'm just excited for the next phase, the next season of my life as an ordained person.